Hey Alpha fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today on Alpha Commission, I'm just going to go over kind of rapid style three of the coins that we've been in here at Alpha Commission, just to give you a heads up of what may be going on. Of course, I'm going to start with our Kadena. Of course, Kadena has been extremely good to us, so let's just get to it. I did try to systematize the chart a little better. Some of these little boxes may be slightly off. I was changing colors and trying to make it consistent between my different charts, okay, that I have going on here. But in general, all of the lines and everything are, pretty much exactly where we had it. So effectively for Kadena, originally we started by trading this range down here where we established, a good buy zone, and then we also established a sell zone. We did that, right? We did that by basically understanding where had it touched previously, where did it get nice bounces, and then where was it rejecting, right? And so that suggested to us that if we were able to buy in this area again, maybe we can pull off the same move. Of course, it didn't come down to the bottom of that area. We did make a higher low, and that was actually a good sign. We actually made another higher low. There's a little bit of a wick there, but that was pretty much a higher low. So we bought in on this one, and then we traded it actually one, two, three times. I did get in at the mid range. I did buy back at the mid range here. However, that's a little bit more of a risky play. I don't really recommend buying in the middle of the range, especially kind of violated my principles. We were at the top 1/3 of the chart there, so in some respects, that was a technical mistake on my part. I shouldn't have bought at that point because, of course, what did happen is we ended up retracing even more. Kadena does love to do these basically like full retraces, and so you never know when it's just going to come all the way back down to the bottom. But of course, trading is different than technical analysis, and I got a little bit greedy. I thought we might have that pump right there, and so I just wanted to make sure to get back in my position at a good price. And so I did take that risk, and then of course the market turned down as Bitcoin was turning down, but we did come back to trend, and that was where I suggested was an actually a technically good buy-in point, and so we did end up riding this for a good 45% move, right? 45% from that area there. At which point, we did have the possibility to take some profits right up here again, for a basically a fourth and then a fifth profit taking point. But because of the bullishness of the market, again, I tried to just buy a little on a pullback because I knew this thing was likely to be popping off soon. With the rest of the market. And so, of course, we turned this mid-range resistance into mid-range support. And so now we can consider, what was previously resistance there in the mid-range is now support. And of course, this second buy ended up being a good choice because we just blew up from there. And then, of course, we actually changed the top of our range into support up here. And when we did have a pullback from this profit taking area, we did get into some of this resistant, this kind of resistant zone over here, where basically we had this diagonal, which we were gonna bump our head into, and so took some profit right here. Sorry about that. Oops. Come on. There we go. Took some profit right here. We had another pullback, bought back on this flipped support over here, and we had a little double bottom, right? So you could kind of tell that this mid channel here was being turned into support on the off of that double bottom. So that was a good buy-in area. And then we bumped our head again, and that's when I took some profits there. I mentioned we would need to flip $2 into support. We did flip $2 into support, and so of course we could take this move or this move, if you missed this one. And then, of course, we had a third time bumping on this diagonal. And then, of course, in the last video, I mentioned that I had gotten out, and what we would need to do in order to get back in was, of course, sorry, this was $1.90, but flip $2 into support. And then if you wanted to be, really, kind of ultra conservative, then you could buy in maybe if we flipped 207 into support, because you see we have this like resistance zone right here, right? We have resistance right here, and so you would want to break that. And right now we're testing to see if we can flip this resistance, right? This kind of like heavy resistance, if we can make a little bit of a support zone right here, which if you are very conservative, then maybe that's the point that you wanted to buy in. Of course, personally, I believe buying in at kind of a more firm support is a better policy. And of course, we did have this very strong rejection area where you can just see, we got rejected here, rejected here, rejected here, rejected here, rejected here, rejected here. So the fact that we flipped this huge rejection diagonal into support, that just gave a huge clue that this was perhaps a good place to buy in, because if that was that much strong resistance and we held it, then it must be pretty strong by now, right? And so I would just suggest that perhaps if we have a pullback, this $2 area is maybe our new support, at least temporarily. And then, of course, we have this kind of proven support area in $1.90 when we flipped, these sections below us. So it is getting a little bit convoluted now. Our trade range has expanded considerably from where we started, right? Originally, we were doing this range down here, and now we're all the way up here. And in fact, we may be disregarding the bottom completely. So I'm just going to just move us over, and maybe this is the new section that we're talking about. However, I just want to make it very clear that there is the possibility that we do a full retrace to down in this area. So in fact, maybe I should just include that, because our growth curve actually does extend up into this area. And so if we did ever just get a full pullback to like $1.70, I wouldn't be surprised to see this kind of mid level area just get flipped into our kind of like the bottom of our support. And if we start to violating those ones, of course, we could fall down to $1.10 or perhaps 80 cents eventually. But basically, we are walking our way up here, and the more that we walk up here, just like this right here, like the heavier the chances that we're going to fall all the way down. Now, we might not fall, 100% of the way down, right? Here's the kind of little wick here, and then this one was a higher low. And so if we starting here, then maybe the next place that we fall down is going to be maybe $1.70, like I was suggesting, right? But if we in fact turned this area into pretty solid support, then it could be $1.90. And depending on how we're pumping, we could just go parabolic and just kind of tap $2.40, if not higher, right? Who knows, depending on how this market goes. But we have to be ready for both circumstances, and that's why we take our profit along the way. We don't just take our profit at one spot. We take our profit along the way, and then we buy back in on retraces, because nothing just goes straight up and nothing just goes straight down. It tends to meander a bit. Now, the question is, when do you get back in? Because maybe you missed something. You don't want to be making mistakes, huge mistakes, which is very easy to do in real trading. Of course, what we're discussing here is technical analysis, and real trading often works out differently than how we expect, and our feelings and emotions get involved, and so we can make just huge mistakes, right? Just personally, of course, I've made a ton of mistakes, but the analysis is suggesting that perhaps we have support here at $1.09. You can see this diagonal, right? resistance, 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 resistance. Good place to buy in because we flipped it into support. If we come back down to this area, it might be support again, or that diagonal might be support along with this blue line. So either way, $1.90 or $2 is pretty much likely support at this area. $1.95, $2 to perhaps $1.90, right? And so in that case, if we did have a pullback, then that would be consistent with us just continuing in an upward direction. But if we start to violate those areas, right, if we violate $1.90, then we're really in danger of checking out these lower levels because we don't want to violate, especially $1.80, right? But our previous low here is $1.87, and so we don't want to violate that. It means we're probably going down. And if we do just draw a trend here, the trend would suggest that we could come back to, $2, right? Before perhaps popping off again, just if we keep this trend. Mind you, these things can break down very quickly, okay? So just be aware. We did get an astonishingly good pump here of 8%. So that's nothing to sneeze at, guys. Like if you're making 8% in these trades that just like pumped in one day, 8%. I mean, you're making good money. Now I had actually gotten out. I told you guys that. Let's see, the last trade that I made was right here. In terms of the last video, I told you that I took my profit right there when we got rejected, and I would wait to see if we kept this as support or if we broke down. And if we kept it as support, then I would want to see us crossing this line. And then I don't really care what we pumped to just on crossing that line. I would want to see where our next support was. And we did flip this diagonal into support. So that was, an extremely good that was an extremely good spot to buy back in if you did want to buy back in. Now, I think that's it for Kadena. You guys can understand we're still just testing the top of the range, between this, let's just say 210 to 220. We're still just kind of like testing the top of this range. It could take a while until we break out of it. We could just break out of it at any time, but it could take a while until we break out of it. And so be aware of these pullback zones and these potential buy levels. Because if you're not, especially if you're not in it, but also if you are in it, that you might have want to take your profit in these red zones that I mark out at the top, right? These kind of rouge kind of zones. But the coin that I was really interested in after topping out pretty much on Kadena in this area, and then just getting a little bit of this pullback, the coin that I was really interested in was Zilliqa. And Zilliqa, we do have our old trade here. It is continuing to just go. So we are having a little bit of a pullback here. But since we last checked on Zilliqa, right, I mentioned you should buy in here at 37 cents. You can go double check the videos. I recommended 37 cents was a good area. When I say recommended, it's not financial advice. I'm really just talking to myself, okay? So I always have to mention that. But that's a good 33% increase. And of course, we had taken some profit at 20%. And then what happened was that we had a pullback to the mid level. And just like Kadena, we ended up flipping, this resistance, right? What was once resistance, we ended up flipping that into support. So this was basically our little profit areas beforehand. And of course, because I just want to be honest about mistakes, I made a mistake. I bought in, somewhere around here, either thinking that this was going to turn into support, which it did, but it had turned into support down here. I made a mistake. So I thought this middle zone might turn into support, and so I did buy in as we moved in here. But then we just continued to flush down, and then I said, of course we have like these points down here. Probably this is going to be the area that the chart goes down to, and so I suggested just a buying in down here, which was to be honest, it was the more obvious thing. The way that I was thinking when I did buy in here is I was thinking maybe we had kind of like a support like this, and you can tell we sort of do, right? Like a price action is honestly, it is moving up. Like if you just like imagine with your mind's eye, like we are kind of just moving up on this diagonal. And so I was right, but at the same time, the chart is just so crazy, right? It's so crazy with all these huge moves that it just was bad timing. So that was bad luck on my part. Had to take a little bit of an L there, but then calling this one as the actual trend and being a little bit more conservative and not so greedy. Of course, this ended up being just the incredible play here. And then today we got this just smashing, blow off top here, not blow off top, but just burst to the upside of 15%. So that was an incredible play, as we did prove, over several days, we proved that that previous resistance had been turned into, of course, support. And so that's where you would have wanted to buy in as this thing was consolidating, especially it had a little bit of a double bottom right here. It held this support and then it held that support up here and it also held it up here. And so it was just showing that with this higher low, right, it was just showing that higher low, like, and especially flipping this diagonal, that any of these spots to buy in was it's probably a good bet. And so that's what I was interested in. When Kadena was having a little bit of a pullback, I was interested in this one because the range here, it's basically there's nothing, there's no resistance in this area until you got to this zone. So that was a nice 15% pop up. Now we would expect to have a retrace, and similar to Kadena, but a little bit more confusing in how it looks, because you can see all of this resistance, this choppy resistance up here, the one that I was trying to buy off of, like flipping it into support. It didn't flip into support up here, so I was wrong back here. But I think we're now at that point where maybe that line that I was trying to buy in on, I think maybe now that line is going to flip into support. And so just my hypothesis is that we could potentially get this to have some bullish continuation. And you know what? If I actually look, because this chart's a little bit compressed, it does look like we actually hit this spot and that we are using it in a supportive way. So you can see that little wick right there. I mean, we really have to zoom in, but you can see that that area may be the buy-in that we want if this thing is going to continue to the upside. However, if it does retrace sort of like this thing, right, because I got fooled before, then it could potentially just go back to the trend line, in which case we might want to consider perhaps this area down here, which would be a little bit more consistent with flipping this mid channel into support, right? So let's see if we don't test this theory. So I'm just gonna leave this up here and this one over here. I'm a little bit worried about this one. This isn't really a great pullback to be buying on. Again, that can be a little bit of greed, just like what I did here, a little bit of greed to it because you want to get in on these pumps. But let's just say that this thing does continue to go, then maybe that's going to be a good play. Of course, we could always buy on the breakout. I don't like breakout trading personally. I like buying on support. But yeah, just knowing this coin, I'm just thinking it's going to retrace a little bit more. Can't really make a call here, guys. I'm sorry, I can't make a call, but I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be watching to see what it does in this area, what it does in this area. Maybe extend it to this line down here also. Got a little bit of a zone here. Oops. See this kind of chop zone. And so if price came down here, chopped around, and then it pumped up, like that would be interesting. But you can just imagine, just like right here, it popped up and then chopped around and then fell down. It could pop up, chop around, and then fall down, and then go, right? So Yeah, just gonna play this one by ear. You can take a little bit of risk if you want to, but probably the value buy is somewhere here around, let's just say 44 cents to 42 cents, somewhere in there. And then kind of the riskier play is that 45 cents to 47 cents. That's pretty risky play, to be honest, okay? Like, I wouldn't actually recommend that to anybody, but it's up to you. And let's see here. Maybe get rid of some of these lines. Well, let's leave this one on because that one might actually be what ends up happening. Let's just see what happens. And then, of course, we can double check ADA. ADA really underperforming from what I would like to see it doing. TradingView being a little bit sluggish here, but you can see it has a very similar setup to Zilliqa and Kadena. It's just sort of like it's doing it in slow motion, and so it's not quite there yet. It has these kind of like massive diagonals that have repressed it, and then it also has this kind of mid channel that it's being highly resistant. And so really we're trading down here right now. We're hoping to expand our range up here. So the play that we're trying to get is this, is this a 25% move, okay? Where it just like shoots up, sort of like what it did here. And, we hoped that we could have gotten it, when we broke out here, but that was a little bit ambitious. And so, of course, the we've had a breakout here, and then we bought on the mid channel, and then also on the support, which is always the better idea to buy on the support. But we did have a little bit of a double bottom here, right? So it did make sense to catch this move. And we had bought in back here. Can't remember if it was this one or this one, but we had bought back here, and then got a little bit of a shakeout. You know what? It may have been over here. Maybe I'm confused. Too many trades, guys. Yep. So this one was made into support. Can flip that kind of bullish color. Okay, so this diagonal flipped into support, and that was a good buy spot. This diagonal right here, we also flipped it into support, and that should have been a good buy spot. So this was actually not a great spot to buy in, but it was a higher low, so whatever. Yeah, ideally you probably would have want to bought here and sell here. You can see that that had a resistance line above it, like two of them, and so that was a great. That's why it got rejected so hard. It had two resistance lines, plus this horizontal, which I didn't draw out, but it has a horizontal going across. And so then it came back to make this double bottom. That double bottom was a great sign that Cardano was going to continue to go. And so that's why I shared videos on this. We had to break this diagonal, and then we had to break this diagonal. And now we're breaking this diagonal and retesting it. And so this was the place to buy at 50 cents. Of course, I mentioned in the previous videos that 50 cents is probably the level that we want to break out and hold. And so finally, we're holding 50 cents, right? Which was previously resistance, right? Finally, we're holding that as support. And now we're pushing through this kind of resistance zone up here, and one of these days we're going to get a pop. So I think that as long as Bitcoin and Ethereum remain pretty strong, that this is pretty good. That this is a pretty good posture for Cardano. And I think it may just need one more big push, and then perhaps it's going to explore the top of its range. But no guarantees, guys. I'm just saying, like, this would have been a great spot to buy in at, that 50 cents that I had recommended. As long as it was holding that price, I recommended to grab that. And we've had a couple take profit areas, nothing too fancy. This one actually should be below the diagonal. right? Because we're selling at the diagonal there, selling at the diagonal here, right there. Sorry, sometimes I just sloppily make these boxes. I'm trying to make it a little bit more clear. And then let's see. Not sure, but personally, I am interested in this area. I'm interested in targeting this area now. I do think that we could run into our old friend resistance, in this area again, just temporarily. But if we ever make that into support, I mean, we're gonna go for it, right? You see these candles, so yeah, we do have a little bit of a slowdown right now. I'm not sure what that's about because we were able to push through it before. I'm not sure why Cardano isn't just pushing through this. It's just been so weak. Yeah, I mean, as long as we maintain 51.5 cents, I'm still pretty bullish on Cardano. If we start losing 51.5 cents, then, I'm gonna have to reconsider what's going on here. But you can see, okay, guys, like you can see pretty obviously, right? Like let's just be realistic about it. Let's see. There's your low, there's your high. You have a higher low, you have a higher high, you have a higher low, and then what do we expect? A higher high at some point, right? I mean, we could get a double top and then maybe get sent down, but we could get a higher high or a double top, right? Kind of rejection. And so that's why I would expect Cardano to push up at least to here, and then if not to there, then maybe up to here, right? And from here, if we get a rejection, then maybe we're gonna have some type of pullback to like 45 cents, something like that, right? 46 cents, 45 cents. And then maybe this will be kind of a double bottom for the push. But all right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Don't want to make this episode too long. That was your alpha for the day. Stay safe and happy trading.